So hello everyone, thanks to be here. I'm Rémy-Christophe with, and forget the last name, it's too complex. So I'm here to talk to you about how to monitor a globally distributed system. As you can probably see, I'm working at Algolia on the monitoring system. So before talking about the real tech part, I want to have a few minutes about why monitor. You probably, the first thing we ask ourselves before doing anything is to say, okay, why do we want to do this? And the reason is pretty easy, because we believe in transparency. We believe that having everything transparent for our customers is a very good value, and it can help us to improve ourselves, because we are everyone is able to see when we fucked up, because our monitoring is public. And so it pushes us to go further that we should go, and to have a system that is working and very reliable. So another question is, for who do we monitor? So we monitor for three, I would say, kind of personas. The first one is, of course, for our customers. So our customers can see at any point in time what is happening with our infrastructure that they rent for Algolia. The other is the users of our customers. As we are a SaaS company, we are providing a service that our customers are implementing, but the users of our customers are already also using it. And so they don't really know that they're using Algolia, but we want them to have a good experience. So we also want to monitor from the user's perspective, not only the customer perspective. And the last, of course, is us to be able to see what's happening in our system. So the next question is, what do we want to monitor? So for this, I need to describe a bit of how Algolia's architecture is done. So the first thing is that when you go to Algolia and you create an account, you will have what we call an application. And in fact, an application is in one cluster, and one cluster is composed of 3 machines. You have to understand that on one given cluster, you can have multiple applications. Then those clusters are in fact in 15 regions all around the world. So in each region, we've got multiple clusters that could be related or not, that are handling multiple applications. In fact, I lied a bit to you. An application could be on multiple clusters all around the world. So one application could have replications everywhere in the world. So it's not one cluster. In fact, it's multiple clusters, and so multiple machines. And last but not least, one application is having users all around the world. So it doesn't mean that because your application is in Germany, that your users will be only in Germany. Your users will be probably all around the world. So you have to be able to know if any user in the world can access the application and how it can access it. So what to monitor? Should we monitor the servers, so like the bare metal machines that we are using? Should we monitor the clusters, so like an entity that is specific to Algolia, but our customers don't really see it? Should we monitor the regions to know if at any given point in time one of our region is down or not, if the application hosted inside are working or not? Should we also monitor the application? So it means that we need to have a different layers, like a very much higher level with users all around the world. And also, should we monitor from the user's perspective? So for users of our customers, so like anyone, anywhere in the world. So the servers, we want to monitor them probably for us to be able to know if one given machine is dead, so we can replace it, how the CPU is behaving on it, how the memory, and so on. For the clusters, same. If one old cluster is completely dead, our customers will probably won't be very happy because our application will not work. So we need also to monitor it to know how it works. For the application, we need to monitor it for our customers, because our customers only see one application. So if one application is dead all around the world, they need to know, and they need to be able to react on this. The regions, we probably don't want to monitor it because it's only unrelated machines and clusters, so it probably doesn't make sense to monitor it. Even if we can display some data on top of it, we don't want to monitor one region. The other thing is that in one region, we are using multiple data centers, so it probably doesn't make a lot of sense to monitor a region as a whole. And we also want to monitor how the users of our customers can access to the service. So we want to monitor them for our customers, so we can display to our customers how their users are behaving and how they can access the service we are selling them. So for the servers, I think that's a problem that has been solved like a long time ago, so I won't go into detail on this. You have a lot of tools that can help you do that: Datadog, CollectD, Prometheus, Wavefront. For us, we are using a mix of StatsD and CollectD to get the raw data, and then we're using Wavefront, which is a SaaS company, to have all the aggregation, the logs, the graphs, the alerting, and so on. So the clusters, as I said, it's very specific to us because it's the way we work and the way the search engine works. And so between the three machines of a cluster, we've got a consensus. And so the data is replicated on the three machines, so it's highly available and replicated. And the question we have to ask ourselves, and we are the only one who can answer it, is when do we want to consider a cluster down? Because is it when one machine is dead, two machines is dead, or three machines? Same, as I said, a region is specific to us. As it's multiple and related clusters, we probably don't want to monitor it, and it doesn't make a real sense to do it. So one application is specific to one customer, and as I said, it's multiple related clusters all around the world. So we have to be very careful to monitor one application, because one application is completely different than the other, because the clusters behind them are different. So we have to be able to get the data for only one application, even if the others are dead. And last but not least, so users, as you probably know, they are all around the world, and you probably know that internet is not very reliable. You can have very high latency, even if you are geographically close. So we want to be able to have at least an idea of how specific groups of users are behaving for a specific cluster, or at least all our clusters. So how do we do that? The first thing is that we have 40 light probes all around the world. So you probably see, so that's the real map of all the probes that we have. And you probably see some holes in the world, unfortunately, because we don't have a lot of users here. So we only put probes where we have users. So these light probes, they are doing two things. They are monitoring DNS and latency. Why DNS? Because we rely a lot on the DNS for the load balancing and so on. So we need to be able to see how the DNS replication works around the world and how the latency to get the DNS works all around the world. So each of those probes are resolving some DNS endpoints to be able to see if they can find it first and how long it takes to find it. The second one is the latency. So from each of those light probes, we are pinging all of our servers all around the world. And so we can have like a map of latency in the world. And it enables us to get two information that is interesting. The first one is on the servers. So as we compute the latency, we know from one point in the world to one server, what is the latency between those two. And the second one is for the users. As I said, as we use the DNS a lot in our retry strategy and our monitor and in our search engine, we see from the user's perspective how they can resolve DNS and how it can work for them. Then we've got 8 heavy probes that are like more complex and more expensive. So that's why we have less of them in the world, but they are still in key locations in the world. And those heavy probes, in fact, they are doing one thing, is that they are behaving like one of our customers. They are indexing and searching on every cluster all around the world. So with this information, we can see if one cluster is dead, if it's indexing or searching. And so we can also monitor from our customers' perspective, because we've got a lot of customers in public clouds, and sometimes they've got like weird latency, weird network issues, weird issues between cloud and our infrastructure. So from those, we are able to detect some bugs and some weird edge cases. Then all those probes are connected to the one main monitoring system that does some stuff. So what does it do? Basically, it aggregates the data from the light and the heavy probes. And from all of this, we are able to monitor the application. So as we have information from clusters at cluster level, server level, we can aggregate this to be able to have an idea of, for each application, how it behaves and how it handles the request, the latency, and the DNS. So if we go back to the first point, transparency. All of this is made because we want to be transparent about how our infrastructure is working and how our monitoring is working. So what we did, in fact, is we did the status page. So it's a public page, status.algolia.com, where you can see the availability of the main services of Algolia from the last 90 days. And this data is completely public. You can query it, you can access it, and it all comes from all the probes that I've described you. So here you see the search API, which is the main service we sell. Then we've got the dashboard, which is the web part, and the analytics, which does analytics. As for the search API, it's a bit more complex that it's not one system, it's multiple systems. We have a specific page related to each region and each cluster. As it's the status page, you see like a very high overview based on cluster names. But if you go to your own status page, in fact, you will have a status page that is dedicated to you, to your application, and you will only see this. So you can really have a monitoring and you can get the data from Algolia on how your system is behaving in Algolia. So if you have to remember two things, before doing any monitoring, I think it's important to ask us, why do we want to monitor? Is it for us? Is it for our customers? Is it for transparency? Is it to get more customers? Whatever. I think that's the main point. And then from this, you are able to know what to monitor. It really depends on every system. As I said, we've got a weird system with clusters around the world. And so we need to have some specific logic made for this. And how, in fact, it's not the very difficult part, because you can always find tools to be able to monitor, being statsd or like simple probes that we did, which are just doing basically HTTP simple requests. Thank you.
So we have time for a couple questions. Questions? Anyone? Down there.
Hi. Okay. So thank you for the talk. It was very interesting. I was wondering whether you have a way to monitor the performance of a data center or of on an AZ. You know.
I didn't hear the question. Sorry.
Do you have a way to monitor the health of a data center? You are talking about the regions, and you are not monitoring regions.
So yes and no. In fact, our clusters are in multiple data centers. So we don't really care about one data center. We care about the 3 data centers where the 3 machines of a cluster are. So we don't monitor one data center in specific. So okay. Yes and no.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question? Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.